Hello, all, and happy Friday. Thank you, Sean, for coordinating. And thank you to all of you here for listening to me meditate on a seemingly trivial subject matter, right? That I imagine everybody in this room is familiar with. However, I do feel like it is important for you to act as educators as you help your clients or even those who have curious minds navigate the world of e-commerce. And modern day companies, as you can imagine, are relying more on e-commerce to keep their lights on, but they're failing to acknowledge that E in e-commerce, so much so that I just simply need to talk about it. More in the format of this presentation. If there are any questions throughout, kindly submit them in the remote question tab, and I'll address them at the end. And just a general disclaimer, because, who doesn't love a good disclaimer? These are solely my opinions, so please excuse any of them if they are triggering in any ways, but also exercise critical thinking before assuming them for your own use. And without further ado, let's get right into it. So let's start at the very beginning and ask the question, what is commerce? To me, generally speaking, it is the system that allows for the exchange of one thing for another thing. Commerce itself existed well in the BC days of yore, but we're going to find ourselves in the medieval days of yore. I recently stumbled upon this luscious Catalan atlas from the 14th century, and we're going to actually stay here for a while. But looking closely, you can see different caricatures and iconography, which I will infer as the vivid depictions of all the elements of life and an economy supported by commerce. You'll also notice that the map is laced with lines, rightfully the rhumb line network, acting as the modern day equivalent of longitudes and latitudes for navigation. And tracing them, they start and terminate different nodes, and they present a grid system that's underlying all the elements of commerce. And here I'll start to pick up a few moments of commerce that stick out to me in particular. In this area, we see two people trading or sharing goods of some sort. There's this wonderful depiction of transportation, a caravan packed with camels, they're going somewhere. Over here, we see people foraging, gathering food and other valuable resources, it seems like. In this communication area, we see somebody broadcasting a grand message or presenting some kind of gift to their audience. And over here, we see a rather stoic-looking person who appears to be sitting comfortably and surrounded by a nicely organized collection of gold coins in their coffers. I'm sure there's more depictions of commerce than this map if we stare at it longer, but for the sake of this presentation, these are what I'll call the actors of commerce. So what is the purpose of these actors? Well, commerce requires multiple actors to conduct some kind of business, and this concerted conduct of business will then stimulate the larger economy that governs it. So let's expand on each of these actors. This trading actors manages the exchange of goods and services, and we're going to get into the double coincidence of the once. This is a phenomenon. I don't even know why we're going on this tangent, but let's do it anyways. This phenomenon brought to you by a 19th century economist, W.S. Jevons. You have something I want, I have something you want. Great, so let's trade. Let's consider the scenario though. What if you have something I want and I don't have something you want? No deal, obviously, but what if I paid you money for it? All right, now we're talking. And thanks to globalization, the government printing fiat money and assigning it some arbitrary value to make the economy go around, we have a common language to facilitate trading and relying less on the chance that we both possess something we want from each other. Expanding more on the transportation actor, they manage the raw materials to the finished product. So cost includes how raw materials get to your manufacturers to be processed, assembled, and packaged in order to produce your finished product, then getting your finished product to the hands of your customer, and unfortunately, sometimes the other way around, getting your product back from your customer. Manufacturing storing actor, they manage how your manufacturers store and process the raw materials to be assembled into your finished product, as well as the storing and packing of the finished product to be ready to be shipped to your customer. And the communication actor, they manage the messaging and feedback loop. They are the voice in the messaging of your business through, let's say, various mediums of advertising or dissemination. And they're also responsible for customer communication and building customer relationships. And here we have this fancy finance actor, and they manage the financial health of your business, from setting budgets, calculating profits and losses, EBITDA, we don't have to get into that, but recording transactions. They have a good pulse on inventory to make sure there is enough collateral, and they have impeccable accounting skills for, the insurance and auditing purposes. They are also responsible for defining different payment methods to allow customers to choose the one they're most comfortable with for the exchange of goods and services. So you might be wondering, what are some modern day representations of commerce? Well, it can be presented by brick and mortar storefronts. This is commerce at one branch of its evolution, from a wide network of actors all condensed into one place, or many places if you're talking about a retail chain. And then you might even have HQs for those retail chains, only to find out there are parent companies to those HQs, and we'll save that for another time. Another branch of the evolution of commerce is e-commerce. So circling back to the introduction of this presentation, what is e-commerce? Well, I gave it the same definition as commerce. Generally, it's the system to allow for the exchange of one thing for another thing. Here's a twist though, it is done electronically. When comparing brick and mortar to e-commerce, brick and mortar relies more on your customers to do a lot of the heavy lifting. For example, they're responsible for finding a way to your store, picking up the goods they want to buy, and transporting all of it back home themselves. With e-commerce, heavy lifting actually falls on the business to figure out, and they will have to arrange a series of factors that allows that customer the luxurious convenience of shopping with their thumb on their internet-connected smart device. You can see why e-commerce is so appealing, though. If you have the drive, you can spin up an e-commerce store in less time. You could open up a physical brick and mortar store. So the power of being technologically enabled is indeed a very powerful tool. Here's the real talk, though. The most appealing factor of e-commerce is the low overhead and startup costs. The most troubling factor of e-commerce is the engineering that makes it seem too good to be true. So what do I mean by that? Let's talk about your e-commerce application and its network. We're going to go back to the network of commerce actors and make the parallel to a network of e-commerce actors. Actors work with each other to bring about specific functions. For example, this is a general order confirmation mapping. As soon as your customer purchases a product from your website, point A, a transaction is captured and recorded in your payment system, point B. Then the customer is sent a receipt to confirm the completion of the order, point C. Simple enough, right? Here's another example that's a little bit more complex, the shipment notification. As soon as the order is placed, point A, a payload is sent to your warehouse, point B. Your warehouse might be using some kind of middleware to intercept your payload at point A prime and translating it to a warehouse-friendly format. Your warehouse then picks and packs the items in the order, point B, and a payload is sent from your warehouse to your shipping carrier to generate a shipping label to inform transportation about a new shipment to be delivered to your customer, point C. Like the warehouse middleware, there could also be a transportation middleware, point B prime. The warehouse then applies, I don't know, a label to the package and moves it to the staging area for transportation to pick up. When transportation picks up the package, what payload is sent back to your store, and your customer is informed that the order is headed their way. Point C prime. Okay, well, that was a huge mouthful, right? What a wonderfully wild game of telephone. Do you think this happens to 10 orders per day? Okay, that seems manageable. Let's dial it up to over 1,000 orders per day. With a business that's running open 24/7, how can you be sure that your actors are reliable at every moment? How can you be sure your connections to your actors are consistent and stable when you don't have control at some points? These are all the connections that happen behind the scenes at every click to your analytics platform, transaction to your payment systems, and payload to your partners and the webhook back. The concert of triggers orchestrated to fire at the right time, to the right places, string together by your developers' arduous efforts in the grand chase to help streamline and automate the business to be 100% efficient and realize all the cost savings. Yeah, that does not happen at all. It's a wonderfully wild game of telephone with too many actors, with some actors relying on sub-actors even to close the feedback loop. Well, this is the problem of e-commerce. I'm sure that this haunts all of you here. You need to own your connections, or as many of them as possible. However, there's a balance between what should be in your domain and which actors, partners you can trust to help close the feedback loops in your business so that you as a business owner can stay focused on your brand. With that, let's add on to the definition of e-commerce. So what is this e-commerce application? I'm defining it as actually the electronic connections between the actors. It is the functions at every node to help actors automate the processes. It is the completion of feedback loops made successful by reliable actors. And what you can do, you can help educate your clients on the importance of owning these connections. Continuing on point 2, let's talk about the infrastructure hosting your application. Revisiting the values of, let's say, what makes e-commerce so appealing. There are a couple of attributes that I feel like the average client will breeze right past. In particular, these are the implications from having a hosted application and it being accessible 24/7 on any internet-connected smart device. I love saying that, internet-connected smart device, what a mouthful. Rather than having a physical building and paying for electricity, water, and gas, you'll be paying hosting fees as a result from renting space on some server to house your application as well as the traffic it receives. Sounds like an excellent trade-off if you ask me, but if you're met with disengaged clients at this point, as you begin to talk about infrastructure, consider it as a good time to sit down with them and really spell it out past the dollar amount. Much like having good plumbing in your building, having good infrastructure will help with sleeping at night. Help your clients understand that their application and infrastructure are two different things, preferably managed by separate people or even teams. The application houses the e-commerce functions of your actors. I'm going to bind it with this. While the infrastructure wraps it and throws it on the cloud for those connected to the internet to see. And it begs the question of, let's say, cybersecurity, but we won't get into that. But know that firewalls and other controls will absolutely be something that you can explore to enhance the overall protection of your client's business. Now, being on the cloud, infrastructure also allows the application to connect with other applications, such as your partners' SaaS products. These connections are probably going to be the most powerful utility of the application. This is the ability to send and receive the data to help your client unlock more of their business potential. Remember that your client is running an e-commerce company. They're probably not large enough to be considered a logistics company yet. So help them find a partner you both can trust and connect them through the cloud. Past the partners, the app is also ready to connect to the magnificently colorful world of other applications at a recurring nominal fee, of course, because they too have to pay hosting fees. and a business to run. The technology is riddled with too many choices and aggressive marketing. So how do we, as tech consultants, help businesses sort that teeth of marketing from sinking and locking them into web services? I'm sure you have all heard about that niche web service that magically solves all of the business's pain points with a click of a button, all while fabricating the onboarding to be cunningly seamless. So what is this e-commerce infrastructure? It's just kind of laying out the different layers. E-commerce functions are housed in the application. The application is hosted on the web server. The web server allows your application to connect to the cloud for your customers to see and integrate so many other applications. Having access to a web server allows cybersecurity measures to be introduced to protect your client's data, move between servers, monitor data flow, query databases, and so much more. And then on a side note, do not expect developers to be network administrators and vice versa. So here you can help educate your clients on the importance of being in the cloud, but also having the option to manage the infrastructure layer. And finally, point 3, let's talk about what marketers are teaching your clients. Taking away this previously complicated game of telephone, here's the general idea. E-commerce is simple, says the marketer. When all the actors are in synergy with one another, congratulations, the business have achieved that idyllic paradigm of e-commerce and found enlightenment. I will tell you that this simplistic representation is cunningly deceiving. E-commerce marketers have adopted an effectively creative way to repackage e-commerce to appeal to the wider audience. The wider audience in this case are small companies, and for the most part, e-commerce for them should be simple. Unfortunately, mid-sized companies can fall victim to its simplistic charm. This is what e-commerce solutions are generally selling to small companies. Both application and infrastructure neatly packaged into a nominal recurring fee. Both are configured in a way to allow a seamless onboarding experience for the average business owner. The owners typically left them to kind of figure out the warehouse and transportation themselves. And conveniently, the e-commerce solution also offers a myriad of integrations to connect to many warehouse and transportation networks. And without knowing any better, and because of the ease of integration, the technology becomes platform locked without the business owner even knowing it. Should they care? Absolutely. One, should they care? Maybe never. And that's okay. The idea here is that you inform your clients about this so that they are at least aware about the risk associated with e-commerce. When I'm talking about the wider audience, here's roughly what, 500,000 companies, which we consider, let's say, small companies. How e-commerce is being marketed to be simple makes complete sense given the case. That's 95% of all e-commerce companies out there. So businesses typically are small and they can remain that way without much technological prowess. And business owners should be able to seamlessly onboard their e-commerce solutions so that they can resourcefully focus their efforts on product, R&D, branding, merchandising, right? Through discovery, they can hopefully learn more about the e-commerce technology and unlock their greater business potential. That's the romantic idea. At least that's what I hope for within business owner in e-commerce. In reality, I'm sure you've all experienced this. They all want things to be done quickly, seems to be afflicted by mad FOMO all the time, and finding themselves changing background colors to increase conversions. But what about those companies who don't fit the standard small business mold? And before all of that, how do you even select an e-commerce solution to begin with and commit to? Obviously, markets change, businesses change, and technology will need to adapt. But how can you help your client think about an e-commerce solution that is 5 years ahead and be ready for that moment of growth when it comes? More importantly, how do you educate your clients between the e-commerce platform versus an e-commerce solution? Because right now, they both read the same way. We won't get into this topic in this presentation. But here's a hint to start. I'm just going to leave it here. We all know about this. And it's difficult to stick to your fundamentals, especially when you see a stock of an e-commerce solution take off like this over the last 5 years. You can start to understand why those who decided to follow the market, even at the best of recommendations. And growth comes with problems such as this data breach for merchants affected. So who do you turn to? Where do you even begin to troubleshoot when you don't have access to your infrastructure? This is probably a good time to now check on the well-being of your systems administrator, because they will probably not have access to their infrastructure to troubleshoot themselves. So exercise caution, and sometimes your business is better without being platform locked. I do give credit to all the marketing teams on the solutions front to reel in new e-commerce converts and invite these new converts to summon their entrepreneurial spirit. That's really cool, right? However, it's up to you as a consultant, an individual, a technologist, developer, agency, evangelist, what have you, to educate your clients about the fundamentals of e-commerce and help understand why having access to technology is the way to go. So where do you need to be? You need to fight for a seat at the table to add friction to your clients and introduce a practical side of commerce. Help them think critically about their technology selection. Offer your sound advice on choosing the right solution for their business. My worry is that companies are not getting the right technical education before taking their e-commerce business online. And I do think it is their calling, being part of the community, to learn and help your clients feel confident and empowered with their own technology. Plant the seeds, but it will require a team.